I'm so glad you took the opportunity tonight to come to our first informational session about the ballot questions that you'll look at as voters in November. We're thinking about questions 3 and 4, and this is about, today we're going to think about and you have opportunities to ask questions about a town manager, town council form of government. This program is put together by the tripartisan Clinton Charter Reform Coalition, which it has members of all parties, and it's also, we're talking about the charter revisions that were also made by the tripartisan Clinton Charter Commission. And we have members of the commission who formulated the proposal, and I'd like to introduce, let's see, Dennis Donovan is here, Art Keever is here, Lise Gazzillo is here, Eric Bergman is here. Other members were Mary Jo Phelps, Mike Knudsen, Mike Korniak, and I forget anybody? That's it. And they worked tirelessly and with great passion and great fervor to put together proposals for you, the citizens, to vote on. And you have taken the next step, the perfect step of coming to get the information you need to make the right decision. One of the best town managers that we have in the state of Connecticut is come to us tonight, Matt Galligan. He's come from South Windsor. He served as town manager in 2 towns in New York State?
Went from Newburgh to North Branford, Connecticut, Village of Mamaroneck, and then South Windsor.
And South Windsor. He has a bachelor's degree in accounting, a master's degree in accounting. He is also certified as an economic development specialist. So these are the kinds of qualifications and the kinds of background that you would expect to have in a town manager. And we look to your brain, and we hope we can tap your brain tonight now to tell us what's your day like? How does it work in South Windsor?
Well, you know, I've been doing this for 38 years as a certified, town manager. I've been in South Windsor for 23 years. If you're a people person, I love this job. My family will tell you I'm probably the only one that likes this job, because every place I've ever been, I've improved it. I've done affordable housing, I've done senior housing, I've developed community centers, I've developed economic development for certain people so they have jobs, you keep your kids in your community. And it's rewarding when you go and you go back to these towns you've been, or even in South Windsor, and you say, wow, with the help of the town council, the help of the planning and zoning, and the people in the community, and you embrace them and you get them going, and you get them focused, everybody moving in the same direction, it makes a wonderful community. When I went to South Windsor, the reason why they hired me was because I had a lot of economic development background experience. So one of the things that a manager can do for you is when you first come, when I first go to any town, I go to a lot of the service groups. And I spent a year and a half in South Windsor hitting the Lions Club, the Rotary Club, Kiwanis, PTOs, and just simple questions. What does your community like to be? I'm the hired gun, and I can do finance, and I can do budgets, and I can do everything, but what do you want your community to be? And you'd be surprised at the answer that you have. People say, well, I'd like this section of town to be this way, I like more development here, my son can't get a job, or the school system, and you learn so much. And then the second step I did in South Windsor has a strategic planning process, where we went and I educated all the boards and commissions, your planning and zoning commissioners, that they have a job. Even though you might be a volunteer, you may be elected, you have a job. And your job is by state statute to develop your town the way that people want that town to be developed. And so we created in South Windsor an actual job description book of every person who's a volunteer in town and every person who sits on a board and commission. So you know that your focus should be here and not out in all these different areas of criticizing another commission or criticizing another person. Be focused on what your job description is. So they say, why is the town manager such a great job? Well, I'll tell you, there was a study that was done many years ago. It was called Smarter, Faster, and Cheaper. I'm going to leave this with you. And it was done by a gentleman who was from Washington, the state of Washington, and it was called Walk Hamstand, Washington. And he felt that the town was not moving in the right direction, and he wanted a town manager form of government. So IBM did this study of 100 communities throughout the United States as to what you can improve upon, what were the problems. And the one thing that they really honed in on was management is the most important issue of local government. If you're not managing correctly, and you don't have the expertise to manage, you're not going to have the community you want. And what they found out here in this study, and we'll leave this with you, that under the 100 communities, that 10% or greater, the communities that had a town manager were 10% greater in efficiency. I mean, I don't write this, so this is not my name on it. This is an independent study that was done. So I'll leave that with you too. And what it is that we drive as professionals efficiency and effectiveness in government. We're not political. You'll never see my name on any type of political endeavor. I am a registered unaffiliated. I've been like that for years because I cannot afford to be a politician. I'm straightforward. Anybody wants to come to my office and they have a complaint, come on in. We set up dashboard systems, everything, to have people come in and talk to us for any type of issue that you have, whether it's a street issue, it could be a dog issue, it could be a coyote. We've had a big coyote issue. Lately you've seen us in the paper about daycare, which was a little bit of a testy situation. And again, those are people who went outside the town manager and didn't come to me to solve the issue and got into a bind. We're here to make things work, to make things happen for the community. Now, and also to be honest. I mean, sometimes the council accuse me of being brutally honest. Well, I don't know of any other way to convince you or tell you what is the right thing to do. The law is the law, your charter is the charter. Yes, we can look at things and say, if you want something done, change the law, change the charter, have a public hearing. Do what you're supposed to do to make it happen, but I cannot approve something that doesn't meet the law. It is just that simple. So, and you'll find a lot of times that the politicians will step back because they're not going to change things that they know is going to cause them a little bit of agita when they're out there having a public hearing. So the professionalism is just something that I pride myself on, and that I produce a budget every year. And when it comes to economic development, when I got hired, everybody wanted to build these malls because Manchester had a mall. And I said, did anybody ever ask the community what they wanted? What they're missing? So I went around with strategic planning for a year, and I met all these groups, and they said, we don't have an identifiable downtown. We have the four corners, and that's it. No identifiable downtown, and it's terrible that I can't take a dog, I can't walk anywhere. So if you all come up to South Windsor, there's a place called Evergreen Walk. And it's not a mall, it's a downtown area that you can shop, there's shopping there. Now we built a hotel, we built apartments in the back. We now have we just having a groundbreaking now for independent living for people who are between the age of 65 and 90 who are still getting around. They want to come back and be with their families, but they're still able to do the things they want to do. We just approved the Alzheimer's Center because that's a huge issue. And we have a lot of assisted living facilities. So we created a community, something for everybody. Toll Brothers up there now because they found South Windsor, where all the economic development going and the school system improvements, that they're up there. They sold houses, and they sold 43 houses in 1 week. I mean, you have to look what people want and what they're going to enjoy. And when I go down to Evergreen and I see people walking their dog, and they go to the park and they do all these things, I mean, people are enjoying this little area. And now today, we just approved to have all the sidewalks redone in Buckland, to now take this area of town and start connecting it so that people can go all the way from the town hall all the way down to Manchester and be able to walk rather than have to take a car. Or they can take a bicycle and things like that. Parks is also very important. And it's not just about baseball fields, but passive recreation is very huge for us. And we have built walking trails. We have worked with, nobody ever thought that we have power lines that run through for miles in our town. So I went to Eversource and I said, you get these great power lines, and you get these little trails where the guys come in and they look, and we use them as walking trails to connect neighborhoods. So we have a program now that we're now putting stone dust in, so people can have walking trails to see some beautiful areas where you'll see coyotes and rabbits and deer and all that, but be able to connect back and forth. Then you go to the other side of town, we have an industrial area. You go to another side of town, we have Evergreen Walk, we have the down area. And all this is done because a professional manager sat and said, you need a planner, you need an economic development coordinator, you need people. We work with our EDC. I go to their meetings every month. Once a month they meet, EDC. We have a redevelopment agency meeting that we created because we have areas in town where buildings have been abandoned and they're brownfields and maybe they had some issues with them. So redevelopment is the agency that we use to get grants to do that. So we've gotten about 3 buildings already out of the brownfield back working together as viable buildings. One is a recycling center. One is, believe it or not, a ninja center. You ever see Ninja on TV, the big ninja thing? Well, I don't go there because there's no way I'm going to do any of that. but they have a system where the people go in there and they work out and the kids love it and they jump and they do things. And my grandson thinks he's going to be a ninja warrior someday or whatever, and that's okay. So, but he's doing fine. So the manager, if you don't have, the manager has vision, but more importantly, the manager will sit there and figure out what your vision is. Because we can commit and make any changes. We can do anything. I mean, we got the skills to make it happen. We got the connections and the wherewithal to go after people and say, you know, come on in. But it doesn't work unless he or she sits there and says, what's your vision? What do you want your town to be? One of the problems that you have in the state of Connecticut is that your terms are 2 years. Before you know it, somebody's in, somebody's out. And in the first 6 months they're trying to get something done, the last 6 months they're campaigning. In New York, most of the terms are 4 years. So you have an opportunity in certain towns, certain mayors, if you have a good person there, happens to be a smart individual, can turn something around. But when you think about it, my mayor is a physician. In the middle of a meeting, he'll get a phone call because he's critical care. Sorry, I gotta go. And he leaves. And I can't blame him. He's got to take care of somebody. I have people sitting there who are in the insurance business, or they're in some other business. They're working every single day of their lives, and they want to make the community better, but they don't have the time that we would have to spend to make that happen. And that's a key issue. I have some very brilliant people on my council, and it's my job to take their brilliance and get them at a Monday night meeting and say, okay, this is what we need to do over the next 2 months. This is what you need to do for your budget. And you work with them and you get it done, and you've got to give the information so they understand it and embrace it, and you get them to approve it. I would tell you that in most instances, because of the town manager form of government, a politician who's sitting on the council has more opportunity to think about the bigger picture than worrying about whether he's got to fire somebody in the police department or in public works. That's what I do. I do all the union contracts, I do all the negotiations, I do the budget, I hire, I fire, I put everything together for snow removal, leaf removal, trash collection, recycling. I take care of all that. So this mayor sits there and says, you know, I can go out and talk to people and say, what do you want your town to look like? And get back to the manager and say, you know, we had this little meeting and this is what people are upset about, and you can sit down with a professional and figure out how you make it happen. And that's the one key that people don't understand, is that if I'm running the day-to-day operations, and that mayor who has very limited time, or your council has very limited time, because they have their own jobs, they got their own families, they got their own things going on, but that 15 or 20 minutes that they can take out of their life and talk to somebody about where they need to be, or think about a global picture, is huge. Because sometimes they don't have that time to do that. Because somebody's calling them, my trash is not picked up, you know, my public works road is terrible, the police officer didn't come in time for 5 minutes, he should have been here in 2 minutes. I take care of all that, and I make sure it happens. And that's why I think it's very important why this government works so well. I'm also going to lead you with a thing about professional management drives local government efficiency and effectiveness, and also have some things about, in the professional management, American Cities did a little scenario, and they went through and they found out of the 20 top cities in the country that they felt was the All-American City Award, 16 of them had a manager form of government out of the 20. It says something. The efficiency there. Moody's will tell you that in the 200, which is in here, I have that for you too, in the 200 cities that they've looked at across the country, out of 200, 70% of them that had a AAA rating or better was a manager form of government. Because we think about that. We eat and live that. We're professionals. You know, in South Windsor, when I went there and interviewed, I love that town. You know, with a good school system, I knew my wife was going to be happy, my kids would be happy there. And I worked very hard to be in that town. So, and I want to stay there. I mean, I don't have to move my kids. I mean, the average manager on the East Coast is 3.5 to 4 years. And you're done because of sometimes a turnover. But a good manager will figure out how to stay longer, like me for 23 years, because they listen to the people. I listen to what they want. It's not necessarily what the politicians want. I do listen to them, I work with them, but when I can listen to the people, I can say to them, hey, you know, you may be right here, but I heard this group of people are not liking this. You know, so we gotta figure out what we're going to do here. There's got to be some negotiation. There's got to be some communication here, and you're the person who's going to make that happen. So when you look at it, and I know I took some information out about the 3 towns like North Branford, Clinton, and South Windsor. I mean, you are a AA rated, AA2. When I went to South Windsor, they were borderline A-rated under Moody's. They had a $68,000 fund balance, and I almost died. I said, a community like this, and that's your fund balance? Today, their fund balance is $13 million. They're a AA plus just before AAA, and I'm trying to get into AAA, but in today's environment, the only reason why I'm not a AAA, because the state of Connecticut has a bad rating, and they will not move the ratings of the local government. That's the only reason why I'm not a AAA, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it there. I'm still working on it. So that's what a professional manager does. You look at these things and say, no, this is no good. I have put in policies and procedures to reduce the cost of government. In 1989, they wanted to hire more public works people. In 1989, they had 25 public works people with 35 miles of road. Today, I have 155 miles of road, and I have 25 public works people. Isn't that amazing? We're still getting things done. It's efficiency. It's technology. We measure salt. Now, everybody thought I was crazy when I put computer systems in all the trucks of the public works, and I measured every piece of salt that went on the road so that we didn't oversaturate the salt, get into people's wells, you know, contamination into waterways and streams. And that 1 year we saved $75,000 and not have to buy extra salt. We have systems in there now. If you're in my EOC, I know where every truck is. I know where every truck is on my phone. I could be sitting in St. Martin right now, and you'd be having a snowstorm, and I can get on there, and I know where every truck is. And I know whether that guy is sleeping, or whether he is plowing roads. I mean, we have a good crew, and nobody is sleeping, but I tell you what happened is, we had Channel 3 News very amazed that in the EOC, we had a call come in to the dispatch, and the woman's husband was having a heart attack, and the snow was like all over the place. Because I knew where the closest truck was, we got on the truck and we said, get there. He was there in about 15 seconds. We plowed out the person's driveway, plowed out the area so the ambulance and police get in there, and carted him off, and the man's life was saved. And that woman comes into my office every day, once a month, to give me a cake, which I can't eat. and she's thankful because the husband was only 58 years old. 2 kids, one in college and the other one in senior in high school. And she just thinks I rise walk on water, but it's not. It's just being professional. It's thinking in the future about what you need to do to service your people. That's what it's all about. And that's what a manager thinks, you know. The politicians now in South Windsor, what they do is basically, they set the laws, I make recommendations. We have an issue with blight. I found a blight ordinance, we change ordinance, blight has gone down. People who don't want to do things with their houses, and the grass is growing, the garbage is all over the place, they got 5 trucks in there. So we you know, this is what I do. I say, okay, fine, let's come up with a meaningful ordinance that is meaningful, that we can work with people and say, listen, you gotta clean up your property. You just can't stay like that. And those are the things that we recommend. The council gets an opportunity to review it. They have public hearings. They may tweak it a little bit one way or another. They go in and they have an input into that. And then we create a law or an ordinance that helps to alleviate a situation. So, as I said, I can talk for like hours of this here. The other thing is that I am an economic development expert. I took classes with the National Development Council, which is a national organization. I'm licensed to look at pro formas when businesses come in and they say, oh, I need 100% abatement. Let's talk about that. You may need a 50, you may need a 60, but if you have the skills, some people would say, okay, just give it to them because we want them here. But I can analyze financial statements. I have an accounting degree, but I can analyze financial statements. I do things and say, you know what? You do need something, a little gap financing there. It's 50%, not 100. And they take it, and they'll do it, because you know what? They always ask you here, every developer's like a salami slicer. It's this big, and they keep taking until you say no. But that's okay, because I don't want a philanthropist, because that means he ain't going to do anything. So I want somebody who's going to negotiate with you, who's going to do something about it, and then be able, you just got to be smart enough to know, where do you stop? What's the right answer? And sometimes, an elected official, who's a doctor, who's a lawyer, whatever, he may not have those skills. And may make a terrible mistake where you're giving the store away when you don't have to give the store away. And that's the balance. Now, in every, as I told before that, I probably since 96 is when I started, I probably put close to 8 million square feet of development. But you never find it. Because I have a good planner. And the planner and I have all these that has a 700,000 square foot facility. You can't see it from the road. Because I told them that, I'll give you the bacon, but you know what? I want my community to look a certain look. So when people drive down, they're not going to see it. So we have them put a berm in, have them put the trees in. We did things like this where all of a sudden I say, you know what? This is easy. That's all you do is put trees and stuff in. We're good with that. And they don't mind it. So if you go around South Windsor in the new development I've sponsored, you're not going to find them. Because I have a planner, I have staff, they know what I want. It has to be beautiful. FedEx, some people said, you know, that FedEx building is beautiful, but you can't see it. Oh, well, that's why it's beautiful. You can't see it. You know, but the FedEx building generates close to $500,000 to $600,000 a year in property tax. And all it is a distribution center. Building, but the inside, but there's $24 million worth of equipment inside that I get to tax as well as the building. So, somebody said to me one day, well, why did you give them all these 100% abatement on the building? That's because they had $50 million worth of equipment on the inside that they're going to pay $1 million. And the property used to be farming, which all I got was $1,000 a year. So, you know, you do the numbers and everybody says, oh, well, that makes sense. But a professional does that, and the professional understands that. And we're trained for that, to make those things happen. And again, I would tell you, I mean, I think it's very great that you guys, I love the profession. And although I'll give you a prop, and I'm retiring in February. I decided to pass it on, right? And the council has not even looked at hiring anybody yet. And I said, why? But that's all right, don't worry about it. You know, well, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. You know, we'll get to it. I said, told you 6 months ago, you know, I have a bucket list. And I went, well, yeah, that's okay. No, we're going to get to it. So finally, I think this Friday they're coming in with headhunters and stuff like that. I know it's going to be a long time, but now they've asked me to stay on for the economic development purpose, that I would have a separate contract with them to just take care of that issue, because I have 5 major projects coming up. And I mean, the council embraces it because they know it works. You know, you may get into a confrontation once in a while because they have a little niche that they want to do, and you can't do it for them. And sometimes, you know, I draw a line in the sand too. You know, this is it. This is not going to happen under my watch. If it is, you know, get a new manager. That's what we do. We expect that. We expect that. You know, there'll be coming time that someone's going to say, you know, Matt, we don't like the color of your hair or something like that or whatever, and then I'll sue them for old age discrimination. But no, I'm only kidding. But you know, that's what happens in this business. But if you're truthful and you treat everybody the same way, I give everybody the same answer. I don't care if you're Republican, a Democrat, Independent. This is the way I'm doing my business. This is what happened, and that's the truthful answer. And if you can't live with the truth, then you have a problem. Yes, I see a question right there.
Matt, you know, this is a great place to retire down here.
Hey, listen, I've been down to July Winery a few times. Yeah.
Great place, you know, we like people, great place to retire. One of the things I think we're facing is, when you went to South Windsor, did they have a town manager before, or are you the first one?
No, they've had a town manager since 1961.
Because the question is, it's not so much, I mean, it's, you know, you're hired kind of thing, but it's, in this town, which has been having this kind of government since 1663, and inertia gets big over 350 years. I mean, if you've been in a town that has, if North Branford was, what happens when you think you go into a town and you got to change the form of government from a first selectman to a professionally run town manager? I mean, I think that's the concern here, is that kind of transition. What do we do? That's that's something I think people are concerned about.
But, you know, Berlin changed their form of government to a manager. I'd say in the last 23 years I've been here, there's been 10 towns. Simsbury went to a town manager form of government. Berlin went to a town manager form of government. Columbia is basically what they call a CAO, administrator. I mean, we have probably 30 towns maybe that are actually town manager. Then we have another 15 that are what they call administrators. Vernon, it's a full-time mayor, he makes a decision, but he has a full-time administrator that makes more money than him. I mean that's the way they do it, where it's difficult because people are tough. You know, I used to tell people all the time, the only thing that's constant in life is change. Because we change everything. We in our house we change things, you change, I mean everything changes, and that's what's really constant. And you got to be willing to accept change, because if you don't, you're going to wind up, you know, in a very bad situation, even in your personal life or whatever. Everything happens for a reason, and when that reason happens, you got to be able to stand up and accept it, embrace it, or deal with it. And unfortunately, government today is very, very, you know, complex. I'll give you one instance. The federal government judge just passed a ruling that people don't have to belong to a union. It was a big union called the Janus decision, right? And I'll tell you exactly what transpired, all right? So the judge rules that, you know, they don't have to pay union dues or something, and you don't have to be part of a union, and you don't have to pay union, you have to sign up. So what did the unions do in Connecticut? They went around to all the towns and they said, you know, you have to send out new cards to the union members to have them sign up. Well, I didn't do that, because that's not what the law says. So what happens is, about 10 first selectmen called me and said, hey Matt, what's going on? I said, no, what the union's asking you to do is to do their work. You don't have to do anything. The cards that they're on file, they're right now not part of it. They have to come in and sign. But what happens is, if you're going to do that, the union is going to sue you to say you're trying to influence people not to sign or to sign, and that's not what the law says. So it sounds like a simple situation, but those are the things that get you before the labor board, which is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars of attorneys to defend yourself. Because attorneys, you know, I mean, that's what they do. They defend their clients and stuff. So meanwhile, all the town managers knew what we had to do. But we were all getting calls from mayors and first selectmen. It's like, hey Matt, what are you doing? You know, and the reason why they call me, I was president of CCM a couple of years ago, which is our lobbying effort. We represent 169 towns for lobbying. So everybody knows who I am. The first thing they do is they call me and they say, what should I do? Leave it alone. You don't have an obligation to sign them up. You don't have an obligation to unsign them. The law says this is what they have to do, and if they want to be part of the union, it's up to them to go and sign a card, and not anybody else. Yes, sir.
In South Windsor, do you vote on two different budgets, one for the Board of Education and one for the town?
Well,
like
actually, they do, but it's one budget. What happens is, the Board of Ed will produce a budget, and the Board of Ed votes on it. Then it goes to the council for review. And then what happens is that the council will determine they can't hit individual lines. They can only hit the bottom line. So what the council does is they'll sit there and they'll say to me, figure out what the tax is going to be next year, because we only want a 1% tax increase. So I'll go back to the superintendent and say, guess what your budget's going to do? It's going to change, because it ain't going to last the way you have it.
Well, we vote separately here for the
vote. Yeah, you see, you probably you vote on it by referendum.
Yeah.
Yes.
No. Town council decides the budget. We don't vote budget by referendum.
The town council and the manager getting involved with the Board of Education as well as the town.
Yes. At some point, we can't tell them that you can't buy this piece of equipment. You can't do. All we say, well, your budget's 20 million. It's going to be 19. It's going to be 15. And how that actually comes is the council looks at me and says, you know, man, here's your budget. Here's capital. Here's debt. We put it all together. You know, a 3% tax increase is not acceptable, Matt. Go back and refigure it out. So this year I had an under 1% tax increase. And I sat with the Board of Ed and said, this is what I need. What's your priorities? Because this is the bottom line. This is where your budget's going to be. I'm not telling what you can't buy, what you can't, or you can do. But this is the amount of money that I'm prepared to recommend to the town to give to you.
If the Board of Education has a surplus and it gets transferred to the town, how does the council and the manager manage this? Does it go into paying off debt? Does it go into the general fund? How do you handle that?
Usually that would go right into the general fund surplus. I mean, yes, we'll keep it in surplus unless if it was, say, for example, if it had anything to do with debt, maybe they had a surplus of something like a lease, and the lease, we may reduce debt. But the council looks at each individual item by itself and figures out what was that expenditure for, and if it was just a general expenditure, goes into the general fund, you build up your fund balance. If it was for a lease or something, they may reduce debt on another lease. So they analyze this stuff and they'll ask me to do that. Yes.
I want to point out that the charter that's proposed for the town of Clinton does retain the budget referenda.
Okay.
Apparently it doesn't, you don't have budget referenda in the town of South Windsor, but not every charter is exactly alike.
I agree.
And the one that the one that's on the ballot here in Clinton does indeed retain the budget.
Yeah, that's the same as
referendum.
Coventry and Tolland.
Yeah.
They work it the same way.
Yeah.
And they have town managers.
Yeah, there are plenty of places that have town managers that don't have a budget referendum. Some of them say if the budget is no more than a 2% increase, they don't have a referendum. But the budget, the charter that's proposed to the town of Clinton retains our budget referendum.
In North Branford, we had a town meeting. So it was a town meeting form. So after I produced the budget, the people who are voters, they would come in and register that night, and we'd sit there and they would vote on the board budget and then vote on the town budget, and that's how we did it. And it was.
That's
Yeah.
not the way with the proposed charter.
And that's fine, because it gives you an opportunity to vote on the budget. In my town, for some reason, when they changed it, the council wanted the power to make those changes on the budget. Yes, sir.
The $13 million in your undesignated fund, what percentage of your annual expenditures is that? And what do you earn on that $13 million? What's the return on that $13 million? Where do you have it invested?
Well, actually, the state statute tells you what you can invest in. And it's basically government items. You can't invest in the stock market. You can't invest in things like that. Connecticut has what they call a STIF fund. Sometimes that fund's pretty good. But right now, the market is so bad. If we earn 2% of that money, you're doing fantastic. But you can't invest in a stock market or anything risky. That $13 million is about 11% of my expenditures. I'd like to get it to 15 at some point. But the reason why it's only 11, because on the other end of the budget, which Moody sometimes doesn't understand, I have we are self-insured for health. That fund balance is about 20% of my fund. I could actually not budget for health insurance for 3 years and pay it out of the fund, but I don't do that. OPED, which is prior benefits for people who leave, it's a $9 million liability. Over the years, I've amassed that up to $4 million in cash. So I'm at 50%, a little less than 50% funded on that. And my pension is, we fully fund. It's there. I mean, the funding on the Board of Ed pension is about, it's not teachers, but that's about 92%, and the town is about 75%. Now, I would tell you, anybody know what the state of Connecticut is?
Too much.
About 28% in the teachers fund. So if you're a teacher, I would get a little bit more vocal about what your pensions are going to be, because that's why last year the governor decided that they were going to take $13 million away from the town of South Windsor. So everybody sat and said, oh my God, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So the tax increase was 1.5%. I had all these funds that I've been building up for years. I can pay for this, I can pay for that. And and I sat with the superintendent and we reduced our budget by $6 million. And then we had some other revenue structures that did it. So this year, I'm going to have a huge windfall. So my $13 million fund balance this year is probably going to be about $18 million, because they gave us back all our money, and now we put everything back. And so when the town council looks at this next financial statement, they're going to think I'm a Superman. That's okay. I'm good with that. I'm good with that. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So if we move to this form of government, what is your opinion on the best way to find the right people and build a transition plan? Because, as you pointed out before, the folks we have are, like you said, doctors and people volunteering their time. We're trying to find somebody who's got the right kind of credentials, and we don't have the background to judge that.
Well, I think what you're going to do, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because I do have an ordinance here for how to select a manager. I have some information here. I figured that was going to be a question, so I anticipated that, and I'll leave that open to you.
Thank you.
And through the ICMA, you can get a lot of information. I'm a member of the International City Managers Association. We have, and that's another thing, as far as education, my profession requires me every year to do 40 credits of additional work. So, in order to be a credential manager, I have to write books, read a book, or give talks, or do things that would enhance our profession. So, and that's 40 credits. That's pretty hard to do when you're running a town. So a lot of this stuff is done, good things for emails and online. I do a lot of that stuff because of technology. And it's called credential management. And these are people like us who've done this for years to make sure that we're the most highly professional people that you would hire. Now, I would say to you that if you're going to do this, the best would be, there's probably 5 or 6 companies out there, what I call headhunters, who would be able to put together a program for you to say, to sit with the community and say, all right, you switched over, what's the candidate? First of all, you would, like I'm doing now for the town of South Windsor, I created a whole scenario about what South Windsor is all about. When it was created, what's the demographics, how many people do we have living here, what's the housing stock, what's the makeup of the council, how's the school district, all the ratings that we do, that we have, and they made this document up. And then we're working with a headhunter to say, what's the quality? I just wrote a brand new, statement for the town manager duties. You know, being what I'm doing now, the charter is a little bit older. The job description is a little bit different than what I'm doing right now. So we created that, and then the headhunter will take that and advertise. And these are professional guys that would say, you know, I know a guy someplace that would be perfect for this job because he's done this before, going into a brand new community and turned it around. The first town manager, and this is what happened in South Windsor, first town manager was a gentleman by the name of Terry Sprinkle. And the South Windsor had this headhunter that came in and did this. Terry Sprinkle was the first town manager and was there for 14 years. So if you hire the right people and you get a good committee together and you really know the person that you're looking, that you really want to do, it'll work. After that, he left to go on to a bigger community. He went to Ann Arbor, Michigan. I mean, so, you know, that was his next career step. I mean, and there was managers between, have been 5 years, some 2 years. We've had a couple of young ones, you know, they come here and they want to go better. I came here from a major city and decided South Windsor was a beautiful community for me and my family, so I've been there 23 years. So there are firms out there that will focus you. We're now having firms that come in that's going to sit with each council person individually and say, what's the candidate looking for? And then meet as a group. And you'll be surprised how they mold that document where people will look at that and say, hey, that's a community I want to be. You know, I get letters all the time from headhunters for years. You know, hey Matt, you know anybody who would like to do this? Well, not me, but I'll give you a couple other people that I think, you know, will be fine. But I think that's the way to do it, is to get the professionals in here. It may cost you, you know, it's going to cost you a little money up front. In the long run, you're going to save a lot of money. If you get the candidate you really like and somebody can turn things around for you, it's going to be money well spent. So somebody else, yes?
Now, let's say this passes and we're a year or two out. What immediate benefits within those first couple of years would we say, would you suspect would take place?
I think it'll be efficiencies, because what happens is sometimes is that people get used to doing things the same way all the time. Managers look for always a new way of doing business, always looking for improvement. And if you always look for improvement, sometimes you realize, well, that system is working, so I don't need to improve it. Or, hey, we can tweak this a little bit. So I think you're going to see some efficiencies in your government. You'll see some resistance from maybe departments who got a new boss and doesn't know what's going to happen. That's going to happen. It happens all the time. But if that person is a good manager and really professional and sits down with the staff, the first thing he wants to do is, one, meet with the staff. I have staff meetings every week. I've done that for years. Talk to them. I take people privately and say, hey, what are we doing here? What can I do to help you? It's not, you know, some people's weaknesses is because you're not giving them the resources what they need to get the job done. It's not a weakness all the time. You don't give them resources. So a good manager is going to look at that and say, you know what? It doesn't have any weakness. When I first got hired in South Windsor, there was 4 people that I thought they should fire. I didn't fire any of them. I sat with them and said, what's going on here? Well, the council wants this, but I don't have the money to do it. So, you know, I've analyzed that. I told the council I'm from Missouri. I got to find out for myself. But I found out that they just didn't have resources. You know, that they were good people, hardworking people, loved their town, but they didn't know how to manage in that little bit of money they got. And I taught them how to do that and then add a little bit. So, and I think that's what's going to happen to the manager. And the manager should also, first day out, meet with the public. You got to be that ambassador for the town. You got to be out there. You got to talk to people. It's a 24/7 job. Don't let anybody tell you different. I mean, my wife, you know, she's the real hero for me because she allowed me to do my job. She took care of kids, the vacation plan and the Christmas plan, and she had a full-time job. This is not a woman who's not a professional either, but she knew in order for me to shine, in order for me to do what I had to do and be out there every night and taking care of people's needs, she took care of everything, you know. And if you were in and this is a great community. You got a good school system. You're on the shore. You got a lot of opportunity. A significant other, a spouse is going to come in and say, "This is not a bad place." Yeah, you can go out and do what you want to do because I got a lot of things that I can do around here, and my kids are going to be happy, and that's key. You're in a good spot. You're really in a good spot. Yes.
Can you describe your ongoing relationship with the town planner? How your jobs overlap, how they're different, and basically, you know, how you work with each other.
Well, I would tell you that staff knows exactly what I want in life, and you have to enhance and empower them. That this is what, and it all comes down to strategic planning. I every 2 years change the strategic plan with the council. We sit down, we say, all right, we got this done. What's the next step? Where else do we want to go? What do you want to build? Do you need recreation? Do we need what are you looking to do? And then based upon that strategic plan, I take that plan and tell the staff, this is your job. So public works, when it comes to cleaning the streets, the snow removal, and that, this is it. From the parks division, we want new programs, this is what you need to do. The planner, we need some economic development. So when business come in, you don't sit there and say, oh my God, you want to come and do this? Oh, you can't do this. Oh, I got to do, no, you embrace it and you say, how can I help you? We are a customer service driven. It's like anything else. You're paying taxes for me to make sure that your community is good. You're my customer. You're not a taxpayer as far as I'm concerned. You're my customer. And that's how every manager feels. When you walk into my office and your trash is not picked up, I want to know why. And I want to make sure. Or the snow is not being plowed the way it's supposed to play. I want to know why. And that's the difference. Is that if your staff knows that we have a different environment, it's not taxpayers coming to complain, it's customers that want service. It changes the whole demographics of your government. People become easier to deal with. People become cordial because they know that you are a customer, and that's what you have to display here, and that's what managers do. Yes, sir.
How many towns in Connecticut or nationally have had town management systems, and they decide it doesn't work and they leave it? They go back or go on to something else.
The only one in Connecticut I know of was the city of Hartford. They had a city manager, and we weren't really too unhappy that they did it, to tell you the truth. Because the politics there was so horrible. I was offered that job many years ago and refused it because the politicians I felt were not focused. And the only reason why the Hartford Current, I sat on that panel when they asked me, you know, was this a good thing or a bad thing? The only reason why the Hartford Current, and I have this quote, I should have brought that quote, you would have loved that one. The only reason why the Hartford Current supported the change of government to a mayor, because the person told me that mayors make mistakes and I can write about it and managers don't. I was in shock. And they all supported it because they couldn't write enough newspapers about what was going on in the city of Hartford.
So basically it doesn't happen. It
doesn't. You know what you may have? You may have a major city all of a sudden where some person says, I want to, it happens in the major cities, but when the mayor changes, he's got 5 administrators that are helping him. And so he or she may be successful. But it very rarely goes the other way. Very rarely goes the other way. Yes? Yeah?
How do you get along with the city council? I mean, like in our charter, it would change every, 3 years or 4 years?
Or,
you know, and they're all politicians basically, or Democrats or Republicans or Green Party. But do you have a big turnover?
No. I would say that I had a gentleman, Eddie Havens, who's 94 and just got off the council. He's been in government for 45 years. He originally hired me, and he just got off the council last year. I would say this year is probably one member of council who's still there on the council for 23 years who hired me. And the last one just left to be my state rep, Councilman Dilnicki. So what happens in our charter is it's 9 people, and you have to have a minimum of 3 minorities. It can't be all Republican, can't be all Democrat, okay? And then, so they only run 6 and 6. So what happens is, you can have 4 Democrats that got the highest vote, but it could be 5 Republicans that beat and then that had lower votes, but because they have a majority, they select the mayor. We don't have it where the mayor runs for office. What it is, the charter says whoever is the highest vote getter of the majority party becomes mayor, and the second highest vote getter becomes deputy mayor. So none of them run for a special office, and none of them get paid. Oh, the mayor gets $75 a month, but he gives it to he sends it back to the health center. Yes, sir.
See, in our system, sir, there will be no mayor. The town manager will be the kingpin. He will be the boss. So tell us, like, how would you feel about that function if you were the town manager in this town?
Well, I don't know what your new charter says, but there's got to be somebody who's going to run your charter, whether it's going to be a board director or somebody elected by the board to say you're going to run the meeting. So
There will be a chair.
yeah, but you
That's
see,
the chair of the town council.
So, and that's the chair. I don't need a mayor, okay? No town manager needs a mayor, and we don't need it because we run the day-to-day operation. I'll tell you why we don't need a mayor. It's because I work for the entire town council. See, I don't work for any one individual council person. So when somebody comes in my office and says, hey Matt, you know, I want you to go up there and pave that person's driveway, I tell them go get 5 votes and I'll do it. That's the way it is. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is, and that's the way I operate. And all managers operate that way. I work for the majority of the council. And if the majority of council says, Matt, you need to do that, I still may not do it because if it's a private driveway, it's not going to happen. But if it's something that they want, they got to go back to the council and get 5 votes. We have 9 members, and you need a majority vote. And once you, I mean, I will work with individual council person. If somebody says, hey, I got this great idea, and I say, okay, I like that idea. Let me massage it, let me go through it, let me get with staff, let's see if it works. And if it works, I'll go back with them and say, let's recommend this to the rest of the council. Let's see how they feel. But I'm just not going to do it knowing that I need council approval.
Have you had the opportunity to read this entire definition of our this town manager for this town?
No, I haven't. I haven't had the opportunity.
Well, I was gonna ask you if you had any kind of comparisons of what something was probably not included in the definition of the manager here, and make some recommendations.
I'll be more than happy. If you send me a copy of that, I can get that up back to you tomorrow or by Monday. Yeah, that'd be fine. Because you're voting on it this year. Yeah. If somebody send that to me, I'll take a look at it.
We'll post it online. Post the answer online.
All right. Is it online now? Is it online?
I just was curious to see, you know, you already have a definition of a, you know, a planner there, and what we put together. I want to know what the difference is if something could be added, you know.
Okay, I can do that for you. I can make some suggestions or comments. The manager, where I am, I hire and fire everybody. I mean, the council only gets to hire the manager, the council clerk, and the town attorney.
But you know we can't change anything now.
Right.
I mean, the referendum is boiled and concrete's been poured on it. So we can't make any changes.
No, I know you can't make any changes right now. It's a little bit too late in the situation.
No,
It's already been put down, okay?
Yeah, but what we'll do is with the answer back, we'll post it online. You know, the website we have or Facebook, so we'll get all the comments.
I'm pretty sure that if you model that after most, you'll probably do it.
I'd like to get people who aren't on the commission, in case people have questions about the wording in the charter.
Where you said that you hire and fire everybody, is that with permission of the council, or like 2/3, you do
I
that?
hire and fire everybody. I will never let a town council tell me who to hire and fire. It's not going to happen.
As the charter is written now, it has to go back for approval of the majority of the town council for anybody who wants to know that. But also recommendation is, if this passes, and there's things like this that need to be changed in the charter, we don't have to wait 5 years. okay? It could be done, the next town council, just like this past Board of Selectmen did, they can say, all right, we're gonna do a charter revision to tighten up things that can be changed, so it might have concrete poured on it, but it can be broken off. All right, so
The town council, the only thing they get to do is to approve union contracts after I negotiate them. They do have an opportunity to do that. I set up all of the job descriptions for every employee in town. I set up their salary pay scales, where you hire somebody. That's the only thing they get to vote on is budgetary. That the pay scales and what's going to be the increases. But I evaluate, except for the union, I evaluate 44 employees every year. And I get a pot of money from the council, and I determine that, you know, if you were not good this year, then I get it. And if you've been good, you may get a little bit more than someone else. But I do all the evaluations, and then, but they don't get to see them. Council can see them if they want. They can't do anything about it. All they can do is give me a pot of money and say, here's what you have to deal with for raises. Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question to the present people who put that put this thing together right now as a question, please? Sure. On section 3.1 powers and duties of the office, they do mention that no one person shall have no one person can have be part of two organizations, you know, two committees, okay? But it doesn't specifically talk about the way the town is set up is that we have elected officials for the Board of Education as well as the town. And does that pertain to both, or is it that one general statement carry everything?
Any elected offices.
It's an elected office, right?
Two elected offices. You can't hold two elected offices if this passes.
So it includes the Board of Education
That is
as well?
correct. If you're elected to the Board of Ed, then you can't be elected to the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance.
Right, but it's just a general statement. It doesn't say Board of Education and town.
It applies to all of them.
I think a statement like that, in general, is going to apply to everything. My town council, once they get elected, they can't even serve on a commission. And they can't serve on a committee, nothing. They can be a liaison. They can, and that's what I do, is I take certain members and I say, all right, you're the liaison to the planning and zoning. So they'll go to those meetings and report back. But they can't, once you're a council member, you cannot serve on any volunteer group.
I'm concerned about the Board of Finance, somebody being elected to the Board of Education as well as being the finance.
That's not a good thing.
do you have a Board of Finance?
No.
Okay. If a town manager comes into Clinton, there will not be, if that's approved, we're just like them, there will not be a Board of Finance.
Right.
Won't have no Board of Finance.
You've answered my question.
Or if the town manager form of government doesn't pass, but just the changes to the town, we have that provision in there also.
Right.
That no one can hold two elected offices simultaneously.
Okay.
And there's also something about commissions as well.
Commissions, other boards and commissions.
Even in South Windsor, it's not written anywhere, but when it comes to land use, we do not like to see anybody serving on wetlands and then serving on P&C, serving on EDC. That's just a liability nightmare at that point. So I've worked with the two Republican and Democratic town committees to say when you appoint these people, they only serve on one, because liability-wise, it would be a nightmare. And that's all they get to do is serve on one, especially with land use. You don't want to have multiple people on there.
I'd like to see a couple more questions, and then we have some handouts and some talk about what you can find on the website.
Sir?
Yeah, I think you've done a very good job explaining the town manager form of government, and you're in a very long involvement in it. Do you care to make any stark comparisons of the form of government that some of us think we've suffered with? All these 350 years? I mean, you want to make some comparisons between what you've got and
well, the problem we've got, you know, in South Windsor, I mean, there's a lot of weight on my shoulder to get things done, but I'm a big boy and I can handle that. What happens with some of the governments that we have, especially when you have Board of Finance and this and that, if somebody wants to be politically a pain, they can do that, and slows down the process. And sometimes things get slowed down just because of personalities, not even because of the project. And I see that so many times in local government where the first selectman says, well, we need to do this because we got the walls falling down on the roof, and the Board of Finance says, ah, we're not.
That never happens here.
We're not going to do that. So what happens is, it's slow. I see, if they're not all, if you can't and it's the first selectman's here sometimes only 2 years, and then it's somebody else coming in. So that's the problem. There's no continuity. So there's no building of relationships sometimes, where the manager will build relationships. I mean, I can walk into a P&Z meeting, and they know I'm there for a reason. There's something going on, what it is, and I'll go up and speak, and they have respect for me, because they know there's continuity. I'm honest. I'm only looking out for the town's best interest, nobody else's interest. I'm not getting anything in my pocket. I get my salary, and that's it, and that's all I'm happy for, and they appreciate that. So what happens is, some people say, why are you successful when you go to these boards and commissions? I can't get them to do anything, because they trust me, because they built relationships. You can't do that in a government that changes every 2 years. It just doesn't happen. And when you have all these boards of finance and stuff, and you have a personality conflict, and I will tell you, most times, I will tell you in Connecticut, New York, everywhere, it's not about the project, it's about I hate the person. It's a personality thing. There's no way that person's getting that project, and I'm going to make that person's life miserable. I see it all the time. And it hurts the community. You don't get it done, and nothing moves forward. Get rid of that, and you eliminate it, where now it gets down to 7 people making that decision. It's a little bit different, because they're going to get it done because they know that they're responsible right out there, and the manager's going to be on them saying, you need to do this. You need to get this done. Big difference.
The way I look at it, is the form of government you have, you know who to blame, and you know who gets the credit. In our
I get the blame and they get the credit. That's the way it is.
Okay.
It's very simple. Very simple. Yes, sir.
In a town manager form of government, what's your position on an elected official, especially on the, whatever it is, the council, being also a town employee?
We had one of those. And unfortunately, under the federal law, you cannot tell a town employee that they can't run for office. Okay? And you can't do that. I've been through it. I did have an employee one time who ran for office, and I asked him to leave his part-time position. It created a big stir. The town attorney said to me, well, under the federal law, you can't stop that from happening. Everybody has a right to run off. I said, that's fine. But he doesn't have a right to have a computer that he can do all sorts of... So there's other things that I did to make sure that I limit that person's ability to be political. So, and that's what you got to do. You got to sit there and figure out as a manager, what do I got to do to make sure that he's not going to be sitting in the office and putting out political stuff. That's why I now have, for many years, a computer IT policy. How you use a computer, when you can go online, when you can't go online. Don't be going to Costco and Home Depot and buying your little gifts. Don't be calling your wife online. We have, and we have a system where I can get on at any time and review where those people and what website they're on. And I have fired somebody for doing that because they were on there ordering stuff that they should not be ordering for the house that they were building down in the shoreline. But now he can't afford the house anymore because it doesn't work for me. So I mean, there are systems you can put in place to make sure that doesn't happen. And I'm not being nasty or anything. I'm dealing with public money. And I've been trusted to make sure that that money is being spent correctly. And that's what a manager is worried about. I have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the money that you are paying in taxes and that you're giving me is being spent correctly and not being wasted. And that's our mission. That's ethically my responsibility.
Amen.
I was just going to say, we're a month out from what could be historically one of the more important votes in this town's history. What advice do you have for us, Phil? And that's 5 weeks. Well, how are we going to get this thing passed?
Well, it's tough. It's campaigning. You know, and you must have a PAC group. Do you have a PAC group?
Yeah.
Political Action Committee. You got to get out there. You got to advertise. You got to talk to people. It's just word of mouth, unfortunately. Maybe taking ads in the paper. You took these tapes of me tonight. I'm sure you can do others. I mean, Matt Hart, he's a great manager. John Assessi, you're going to see from Coventry. Him and I have been working together. He'll be your new president of CCM this round. I mean, we're their old guard, but you know, you're going to hear some really creative issues and things that John's done in Coventry. Matt Hart was a Mansfield manager for a while. Now he's in West Hartford. I mean, you know, that's a major player. Look at West Hartford has a AAA community because they've always had a manager form of government. I would tell you that if there's a thing called the, you can go on the website of the state, and there's a list of all the towns and communities in the state of Connecticut and their ratings and stuff. And I would tell you they list all the ratings of who's the town manager form of government, and there's about like 40 towns, and they're all AA plus or AAA. And if you're looking to compare it to the others, you got A, and maybe Danbury, because it's a bigger town, has one AAA and a double. But when you go through it, it just tells you that the professionalism. I mean, Moody's loves to come and evaluate when there's a manager, and they don't spend a lot of time in my. They come and they look at my financials and they say, yep, you're good, out the door, because they know it's being run effectively and efficiently.
But that's a great segue, Aaron, because one of the things we have to do is to advertise, as Matt said, and that takes money. So of course nobody goes to a meeting without somebody passing the cup around on this thing.
Oh no,
but the on our website, and if you go to on the website, which is Clinton Charter Commission, Clinton Reform Charter Coalition.org, right? ClintonCharterReform.org. It's very easy. You click on contribute. You can't donate because that's illegal, but you can contribute, but you can't donate. And there's a little button there, and you put it on, and it's called Antidote, A-N-E-D-O-T-E. It's all set up for this thing, and you know, it can be $25 to $100 or other. 27.27 is fine, whatever you got. And I just did it tonight, but that's it. And the money, you know, it's all federal, watched, and Ellen, whose fiduciary responsibility this is. But you know what it is. You know, we paid for the signs we put up. They're $5 a hit. It's the direct mail. We've got identified that let's say there's 5,000 people that vote. We need 2,501, right? We need one more. We need one more than 50%. Kind of just spitballing this thing. We think we got about 1,250, 1,300 people. Most of this room looks like the choir, so we're talking to evangelists here is what we're talking to. We got to get another 1,300 votes. So, you know, we're trying to be as sophisticated as we can. We're looking at who votes in the 2-year elections, who votes in the even-year elections around town, who votes this. Got to identify them for both voter rolls, which we can get. And, you know, direct mailing is 60 cents a card. You can round it up, whatever it is. It's just a 3x5 card if we do that. But whatever it is takes some money. And right now it's Ellen and me and some of the people that have been in the kind of nuclear family have been paying for this. So it's through that. You can't just pay for something. You got to put it through the Antidote. And I know you get, you know, assaulted for gimme, gimme, gimme. You know, I don't know, sailing clubs, and there's all sorts of things around town, well-wording things. But it's just, I mean, that's what we need. So, you know, you feel good about this. One is word of mouth is the best. I mean, if you've been converted tonight, you know, go preach the gospel, you know, get out there. There's going to be another one of these things in 3 weeks, the 25th. It's at 6 o'clock in the same room. So maybe the people that say, I don't know, I kind of ambivalent about this thing, maybe they ought to come, because I think when you start hearing the benefits, you understand maybe that's the only way the town really we can get ahead. We can actually get unstuck, you know, and as the EDC, how do we get unstuck in this town? We're too good to stay stuck in the same place, and there's a lot of that. But it takes this group to do it, pitch in some money, you know. There's the Facebook page, you can put things on, it's easy to get in touch with us.
Do you have a Twitter account? Facebook?
Facebook.
I mean, for me to get everybody, I do Twitter, I do Facebook, I do bulk mailers. The last time, all our referendums, I take the referendums as listed on the thing, and it goes out to every homeowner. So that when people come in, they're going to know what the questions are before they get there, so they're not guessing about what's going on. So it's going to be taking this TV tonight and see if we can put it on the local cable channel and keep running it. I don't know if you have that availability down here. And sending out a bulk mailer to people the week before and reminding them that this is a very important issue. And bulk mailing will get there. It's much cheaper if you can get it down to like one page and then get it out there. It will be much cheaper. But that's the mailer is a big thing.
To do that. Please make sure you pick up one of these Q&A pages before you leave. They're basically the same Q&As that are on our website, but what this reminds you of, you know, on every page is what the website is. We're going to try to keep that updated.
We can post the
We're
links
going
to
to try
these
to put the links
documents.
to all of these documents so that there's plenty there to read. There's the link to the actual wording of the document. There's actually a link there to some documentation from the CCM for the, also the state statutes that are relevant, and some of the rest of our information. If you live on a well-traveled street, we'd appreciate it if you put one of these signs in your front yard. If you're supporting us, it reminds people, just gets out the idea that this is happening. My name's Ellen Galligan. I didn't really introduce myself. I've been working on this for a long time. I mean, we went on a petition drive last year. We've done a few other things to try to bring this about. So pick up one of these sheets.
Is this your first time voting on it?
It's a long story.
Technically, yes. First time you asked that question.
You don't have enough time.
Don't even get us started. Yeah, you live a long way away. First time in the town, yeah.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
This video provided as a public service by Kirk Carr, the Kirkster. Thank you for watching.